Congressman Ted Yoho, our Congressman Congressman Yoho represents North Central Florida's 3rd Congressional District, which includes Alachua, Union, Gilchrist, Bradford, Marion, Clay, Suwannee, Dixie, Lafayette, Columbia, Levy, Madison, and Hamilton counties. He was elected to the 113th Congress in November of 2012. Prior to serving in Congress, Ted owned several successful animal practices and worked as a large animal veterinarian in the community. For all you animal lovers out there, that's a great thing. I'm sorry, I'm a dog lover. Ted was born in Minnesota and moved to South Florida where he met his wife, Carolyn. They married at 19 and began to work their way through college. They have 3 daughters. Ted and Carolyn have had a successful business career, with Carolyn building her own business and Ted opening additional practices in veterinary medicine. In 2010, Ted and Carolyn sold their practices to focus their time and energy on a new passion, our nation. Ted believes that more than ever, our nation is drifting away from the ability to achieve the American dream. Ted's approach to government is guided by constitutional principles, the idea of small government, fiscal conservatism, personal responsibility, and free enterprise. Let's give it up for Congressman Ted Yoho.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? That's a terrible thing. Where y'all want me? Up here?
Sir, why don't you take off your jacket and be more comfortable? We're all friends, sir.
I appreciate that. I might just do that. I had that on so I could hide this. Because I know that question would come up here in a minute. We don't. I don't know what to say other than thank you guys. You guys are the ones changing America. We're on, did anybody here go to the Tea Party rally in Washington, D.C.? Did you? Yeah, you were up there. Nancy, right? And I had to do an interview right after that. And before we start, we didn't do the pledge, did we? You already did? I missed that.
We can do it again.
Y'all mind? Let's stand up and do the pledge one more time. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless you guys. But after I had the opportunity, the pleasure, the honor to speak for about 90 seconds, I had to do an interview with Andrew Breitbart's team there. And the guy says, do you think this Congress is different than other Congresses in the past, and why? I said, look out here. And there's about, I don't know, 4,000 to 6,000 Tea Party members out right at the western side of the Capitol. I says, most definitely. I says, I wouldn't be here without Tea Party support. You know, and it goes back to people say, well, are you a Tea Party member or not? And I said, well, you know, I don't have a card, I don't have a shirt, but I believe in the ideas. And the interviewers, they hate when they ask them this. Do you believe in fiscal responsibility? They'll say, yeah. Do you believe in limited government? Yes. Do you believe in free enterprise? Yes. I said, well, you're a Tea Party person. Oh, no, not me. But yes, and so in this interview, I says, this is changing the landscape of America. Go back to 6 weeks ago. The United States of America was going to attack Syria, pretty much for the most part. We all kind of felt that, right? I mean, the word coming out of the White House is we're going to go in there. This is not going to happen. The red line's been crossed. The voice of the American people started calling their representatives, their senators. We had 98 to 99% of the people that have called our office say, not no, but heck no, or something like that. I mean, and your representatives in force, we wrote letters to leadership of the Republican Party, we wrote it to the Democratic Party, we wrote it to the President, says we will not support a strike in Syria. We demand, or we request that we sit down as a conference in foreign affairs, in these different committees, and you hear our side of this too. And we want to hear the reasoning behind this. And I truly believe that we changed what happened in the Middle East because of you guys standing up, and it's that much more important that we bind together and that we're a stronger voice and that we do stand up and that everybody hears that and that your representatives are willing to stand up. I don't know, I'm sure you read where the president says, well, you know, John Boehner, Eric Cantor, Harry Reid Pelosi were all going to back the president on strikes in Syria. And the president came out after we all stood up and he says, you know, sometimes you have to do what's right and you have to vote against your constituents. And I'm like, I don't think so. We were sent here as a representative form of government, and I'm here speaking the voice of the 900,000 people that we represent. I appreciate the applause, but the applause goes to you guys. Because you're willing to stand up. You're willing to be here on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. I know nobody wants to go hunting or fishing or anything like that. You exercise your Second Amendment right. You're here. And you're here because you love this country. And it goes back to what I ran for. That movement happened at the same time across America. There is not a Tea Party headquarters. There is not a national leader of the Tea Party movement. It's the movement of the American people. And we said, we've had enough. And so we spoke. We've got a lot of challenges up there. The great thing to me is this. If we can change the dynamics on Syria, can we change it on our debt? Can we change it on the Affordable Care Act?
Let's hope so.
Every discussion we have up there is the Affordable Care Act from the Republican standpoint. I would say it's probably 98% says it's got to go. 100%. It has been the #1 job-killing bill in America. I said that as we ran. I feel more sure about that. I'm more convicted about that. And I'll do whatever I can to get rid of this. We've got legislation. There is over 18 taxes that are funding the Affordable Care Act. We're writing legislations on all of them that haven't already been written, and then we're reintroducing the ones that have been, that have just been sitting there, to defund, dismantle, and bury that bill. But it's going to take more than us doing that. We're also writing a bill to repeal it based on the constitutionality of it, and that's in question right now. That bill originated in the House as a tax, I found out the other day, and then it went to the Senate as health care reform, went out as health care reform, and the Supreme Court said it was a health care tax. And if we can pass a tax, we can repeal a tax. And so we're writing legislation to repeal a tax, not health care reform. We want to repeal the tax. But this is where you and the American people across this great nation of ours, we need to come together. And I don't know if we need a 1 million man march on Washington. We've got until October 1st before this thing kicks into gear. And my fear is once it's there, it's never going to go back. And so we've got a short period of time. We lack leadership in our House. It's not a secret. I've said it publicly. I stated January 3rd that I was dissatisfied with leadership. And so I haven't backed down from that. And they know exactly where I stand. And we have got to have a new direction and a new voice and a new vision for America, to make a bigger, stronger America, a more competitive America. America's losing its competitiveness around the world. And that's not Ted's views. That's the views of the CEOs coming into our office. That's the views of the Asian Chamber of Commerce that are American CEOs coming in. That's ambassadors from Canada saying, you guys are falling behind. And I ask you, is not our government role to make our country bigger, stronger, bigger in that we're growing, a bigger economy, a stronger economy, a growing economy, the middle class growing bigger and stronger so that people can realize the American dream. That's what I feel our government's role is, to preserve that opportunity that's created this country, that's second to none, and I do believe in Americans and American exceptionalism, regardless what everybody else might think. This country, this country is exceptional on several things. One is we realize that our rights come from a creator, and we have a constitution that's written to guarantee and protect those rights. No other country has that. America has that, and that's why we're exceptional. I will not back down from that, and I know you guys won't either. It's been interesting on foreign affairs to be able to sit across the table from John Kerry, Secretary Hagel, and General Dempsey, and to have these discussions about why we should go in there, and them trying to sell this to us. And we had the opportunity to sit with the Saudi Arabia ambassadors to have them sell this why we should go in there. My stance has not changed. This is not our war. This is not our fight. We don't have a dog in the fight. And you're talking about attacking a sovereign nation that has never attacked us. Can we only imagine that if another country attacked us, would we not declare that an act of war? Mr. Kerry said this would not be an act of war if we dropped bombs in there. You know, and I'm like, how can that be? But yet when I talked to the chief of staff from the White House, I said, if somebody attacked us and dropped bombs, would we consider that an act of war? He goes, yes, we would. The Saudi ambassador wants us, they want us to lead the charge. And I said, again, you're asking us to attack a sovereign nation. If we do that, is that not an act of war? He goes, yes, it would be. Everybody else gets it, but our government doesn't get it. And then I hear the credibility of the United States is on the line. That's why we've got to do this, because nobody trusts us or nobody believes us. They don't think we'll do what we said. And I go right back to them and I said, listen, the credibility of the United States has been challenged. However, I don't think anybody in the world does doubt the credibility of the United States military, nor should they.
Right. Amen.
That's not in jeopardy, that's not being challenged here. What's being challenged is the policies of the United States government. And in our foreign policies in the last 30 years, it's askew, it's off track, and I said it's really come to fruition in the last 4.5 years. And I said it's based on the lack of credible evidence coming out, or credible information coming out of the United States government. It comes from a lack of assuredness, a direct statement, a direct mission of where this country's headed and what our foreign policy is. And I said, let me illustrate it for you. And I said this to John Kerry, to the White House Chief of Staff. I says, we've got somebody that says there is a red line, and if you cross that, we're going to do this. And then they come back and say, we didn't say that. And then they said, yes, we did say that. No, we didn't say it. The use of chemical weapons will not be tolerated. Well, they used them 11 times in the last 13 months, or 13 times in the last 11 months. But nobody said anything. And then this is about regime change. Everybody remembers when the president said, Mr. Assad must leave office. Now it's not about regime change. So the signals coming out of our administration are mixed. There is a red line, there isn't. It is regime change, it isn't. Assad used weapons, well, maybe he didn't use them. There's not clear, concise evidence, and I brought up Benghazi. Much to their chagrin. And I said, I don't want to harp on this at this moment because we're talking about Syria, but we're talking about the credibility of the United States of America. I said, and I want to bring up Benghazi for this point. What difference does it make? The difference is this. You said it was a video. No, you said it was a terrorist attack in the beginning. No, it was a video. And you promoted that for 2.5 weeks. It was a video that caused us, knowing good and well it was a terrorist attack that you finally wound up and fessed up to. It was a terrorist attack. If the American people cannot trust and believe their own government, how in the heck can you expect the world, our allies, or even our enemies to trust what we say? And that's why it's so important to have integrity and character when we speak as a nation, or the representative of a nation, that we've got to speak of what America stands for. We've got certain core values, founding principles, and a constitution that is our roadmap. And I've asked these guys, I said, to attack another country that is not an imminent threat to us, that is not a national security interest at this moment in time, is unconstitutional. And there's a lot of people that think it's okay. I'm not one of those, and I said, no, I will not support this, I shall not, and I cannot support this resolution. However, if any of those chemical weapons show up on any of our bases or hurts any of our people, or goes to Israel or any of our allies, you will see the red, white, and blue in his full blazing glory, and there will be no doubt. And I think the rest of you feel that way, if that happens. And I felt good to be able to talk to John Kerry. He said, listen, this is the 21st century, and you're talking about the best that we can do to stop a conflict in Syria is to drop bombs. The 21st century, the strongest country in the world. There's 189 countries that have signed the CWC agreement, the Chemical Weapons Convention or Convention Agreement, that said that the production, the transport, the stockpiling, the sale, or the use of chemical weapons is forbidden. But let me remind you, you're telling me Syria has one of the largest chemical weapons stockpile. So does North Korea. Russia's got a big stockpile. China does. Israel has them. We have them. Britain has them. So do we enforce this in totality? Or are we just going to say, well, Syria, we're going to go to Syria? This is wrong to do. And, you know, I went to Mr. Kerry, I says, this is a moment in time, because our foreign policy has been askew for the last 25 to 30 years, more so in the last 4.5 years, for America to change and do a paradigm shift in foreign policy. To get away from the first reaction is dropping bombs. This is a time to demand these other 188 countries that have signed this agreement come to the table, and we're going to sit on this side and demand Mr. Assad on this side and say, you have some explaining to do here. You need to decide that you're going to stop and desist. I mean, we've got the clout. We support the majority of these countries with foreign aid, which I don't like, and I know you guys don't like. But if we're in the process right now, we're giving foreign aid, this is the time to challenge that and say, if you're getting our foreign aid, you're going to be at the table and you're going to be on our side. And if not, this would be a great time to stop that. And demand the UN is there too. Because again, this is a time for us, and you know where I stand with the UN just like you. We've signed the stuff to get out of that. This is a time to challenge that and just say, you know what, I don't even like you guys, and we're giving you all this money. We pay about 25% of their operating expenses. This is the time to say, you're gonna be at the table demanding this stops, and there's a way that we can get a peaceful resolution to this through words and diplomacy, not bombs and guns. And we could do this, and Kerry said it just won't work. And then he made that flippant comment over in London when the press asked him, is there any other alternatives? And he said, yeah, Assad would turn over all of his weapons and agree not to use them, but that'll never happen. He won't do that. That's exactly what we don't need. We need people with a can-do attitude. There's another possibility out there, we just haven't found it, but I know it's out there. This is the time we could have led this around the world to say, you know what, America's not about just bombing people and killing people. We're about diplomacy and to doing the right thing. But unfortunately, we fell behind Russia. Russia saw the opportunity, and you saw what they did. They negotiated what's going on right now. And let's hope and pray that we can humble ourselves and be an asset into drawing this war over there to a conclusion and do it peacefully through diplomacy. And I think that would be the best way that we can do this, and our foreign aid should be this. We want to trade with you and help you develop economically in your country so that we can be good trading partners and not give you money and any of that other stuff. I want our foreign aid to be trade, not aid. So with that, how do you want me to do this? You want to do a question and answer session? Anybody? Yeah. All right, you had your hand up first. Are we going to use a microphone?
Yes.
You want this microphone and I'll give you this one?
Yes, sir.
It works. This fellow over here had his hand up. You get him next. I know, you go ahead. You go ahead. You don't mind waiting 1 second, do you?
It wasn't a question, it's just that it mentioned you were going to talk about immigration. I'd like to hear your views on that.
She wants to know where I stand on immigration. Again, I can't support the Senate bill. I will not support that. It's not good for America.
Right.
What I want is responsible immigration reform, and that bill is not a good thing. And we can talk more about that. Go ahead.
Okay, I think that Obama is in bed with Putin in Syria. Okay, and that,
Hold your microphone. I can't hear you.
and Obama is in bed with Syria and Putin. This is just a little, and this is just a ploy. And then if we're going to turn over our chemical weapons to Russia, of all people, what's that going to do? I mean, the United Nations, okay, but are they going to go in there and search and then take the weapons from Russia? Or is Russia just going to hold the chemical weapons they gave to Syria? And then Syria's already hidden most of those weapons already because we've already broadcasted what we're going to do. So I don't really understand what the solution is.
Well,
and I know it's a hard choice.
It is, and I don't ever look to weaken America in our in our military strength and might. You know, I would not do that. But I also trust America to not use those stuff. You know, I know we wouldn't do that. At least I would pray and hope and pray we never do that. This is all about disarming Syria so that they come on board and stop doing this. I think we're all in agreement that's probably an atrocity that should stop around the world. And I think we're all in agreement on that. But again, when I talked to the Saudi Arabia ambassador, I said, this is not our fight. We don't have a dog in this fight. We said the same thing with the chief of staff at the White House. And I said, because they're demanding that we go in there and lead this charge because it's a destabilized region and it's going to bring this on, it's going to escalate a nuclear war and nuclear race in the Middle East. And I said, listen, I said, you just told me we don't have a dog in this fight, and I agree. I said, I want to know where the Arab League is on this. This is in your backyard, and it's a Muslim country fighting a Muslim country, and there's a book called The Clash of Civilizations, and I said, I know you've read this book. And I said, you know that if a Westerner intervenes in the Muslim conflict, we're the bad guys again. I said, I want you and the Arab League to lead this charge. We'll be in the background cheering you on. And I says, and you explain to me why we need to do this, because I've looked at the stats and you have the 10th largest military in the world. You don't need our assistance. And he goes, you guys got the best technology. I said, we do. But you need to lead this charge, not America. And so, I can't answer for the president. You have to ask him. All I know is elections have consequences, and we need to change a paradigm shift here too. And that's where, again, going back to what I saw happen with Syria, the dynamics change in a 6-week period of time. We can change the dynamics by the people speaking up. The only way we're going to be successful, and I know you guys know this principle, is success is not built on convenience, it's built on inconvenience. I saw people at that rally on Tuesday, I think it was, from Newberry, Florida. I saw them from California. I saw them from all around our great country. That they were there to stand up for this country and to bring that voice forward, and this is a time that we need to do it again. It is we the people. Going back to immigration, it's interesting how Syria wasn't an issue 6 months ago. I mean, we all knew it was going on. And then all of a sudden, things weren't going well with immigration, gun control, the debt ceiling, and Obamacare. And all of a sudden, Syria is a big issue now. But we know they used chemical weapons in the past, so everybody kind of overlooked that. So I kind of wonder how much of this is a deflection. Now all of a sudden I see immigration is back on the front burner. And this goes back to leadership in the Republican conference. My belief is we should have a clear-cut, concise strategy of building this country bigger, better, and stronger. We can do that by immigration reform, tax reform, getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, and replace it with H.R. 2300, which is Dr. Tom Price's bill. It's a great bill for health care. It has pre-existing conditions. It covers people that don't have insurance, and it keeps it privatized. It has tort reform in it, and it's just a great bill. And I've challenged our leadership that they need to promote this, and they haven't done it. And so the only way we're going to change this is if we can change our leadership in Washington, and I don't think it's a secret up there, you know, since my first vote was against leadership, and I haven't changed. I mean, I haven't changed. And I know this will wind up in the press, and I'll have to say, Mr. Bainey, I did say that. You know, that's all right. I mean, I didn't go up there for a job. This was for a cause and the love of this country, just like you guys have. Am I going to pick or is somebody moderating?
Very few of us really understand what goes on in Washington in your office. How does John Bonner try to persuade you to vote one way or the other, or does he send somebody, and who pushes his buttons and tells him which way to go?
The last question, who pushes his button? You know, I don't know, Charlie. I wish I knew. If you go back to President Obama was going to go into Syria, he talked to leadership, they were going to go into Syria. They're not speaking for me, and they're not speaking for you guys, and I can't support that. So I don't know what his agenda is. I don't know who you'd have to ask him. How they ask me to do stuff, they said, where you stand on this? And it's usually a no, and they kind of know, they laugh about it because they call me the new Dr. No. They said, are you the new Dr. No? And I said, no.
Better mean Doctor Who.
That's right.
Do they come to your office and try to?
No, they see us on the House floor, and we have study committees once a week, sometimes twice a week. And they'll say, this is what we want to do, but it's very short-sighted, the plan that they sell. And there's a lot of disgruntled people in there. And I just hope there's enough that'll say, it's time for change. Yes, sir.
Congressman, my name is Norm Knight, and I want to thank you so much for all that you do. You are a breath of fresh air, and
My wife
I don't mean it.
Nobody ever said that to me as a veterinarian. Must be a large animal vet.
You got a hard job there, and I hope it's a labor of love, because we are all scared for our country. We feel like that we're under assault on so many fronts that we can't even count them all. And you mentioned the United Nations, you know, that should be gone. We should need to be a part of that. You talk about our education system, it's under assault. Our institutions have been taken over, the colleges and the universities and the education unions. And we've got the states' rights now as a thing of the past. We need to, our concerns are just so rich, and it's a tapestry of things, and we want somebody up there who will jump up and down, set their hair on fire, and create some urgency. We have a little window here to have a chance maybe of fixing this thing, and we hope that, question, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, a paradigm shift is in order, and the sequester is not radical, it's not a huge cut. Shutting down 4 or 5 departments and cutting everything by 25% would be a little radical. If we look at that paradigm shift there, maybe we can get them to come to us. But how can we deal with our own Republicans who are not part of our thought process?
Well, it comes down to being a gnat. You know, you could try lighting a fire. They got a good fire system up there. But I feel like I've been a gnat, and then I wish that would go away. You got a specific question?
I just wanted to say, how do we push back? How do we create some urgency to make something happen now? We're looking at tax tax front, the immigration front, Sharia law.
This goes
education,
back to,
anything.
I'll tell you where I feel on
Give
this.
us a success, give us a trend.
Until we change leadership, this will not happen.
Right.
All right, and I say that, it's just like my Trust Act. You guys heard about the Trust Act. This is the first act we introduced, and it came from you guys, and it was about anybody that served in Congress, whether representative or senator, why are they not treated the same way we treat our military? If somebody serves honorably in the military, they get their benefits. If they serve dishonorably, they lose things. So if that's true for people willing to lay their life on the line for this country, why is that not true for the senators and congressmen?
Amen.
And this will get to your point. So we introduced a Trust Act that says if you're a member of Congress, senator, or representative, and you get convicted of a felony while serving, you lose 100% of the public portion funding of your retirement. I mean, it doesn't sound like that bad of a thing. That's not radical. I mean, I think we all say that's a good thing. Well, we submitted that in February or March, and I asked leadership about it the other day, and they said, well, you know, there's going to be some members that don't like that because they'll feel that Eric Holder will come after them. And I said, you're kidding me. I said, we got a 9 to a 12% approval rating, and if they're afraid of that, they're the ones that need to get out of here. And I said, for you not to bring that up is what the American people are fed up with. So that leadership should say, hey, I've got a member that wants to bring it up. What do you guys think? You want to vote up or down on this? And let the members vote, but they don't do that. And until we change leadership, it's not going to change. And my goal is to help that happen. I'm on kind of a mission. Because I realize, and again, I have no personal bones with anybody up there. There's a lot of smart people, a lot of great people up there. But we have to change that. And it goes to Harry Reid too. The Keystone Pipeline, we passed strongly out of the House of Representatives. You've got Harry Reid, who we've sent letters to and implored him to bring this up for a vote in Congress, or in the Senate. And let the members in the Senate debate it and vote on it, but he won't even bring it up. That's an obstruction of the process, and it happens over and over again. It happens on both sides. And this is where people need to stand up and get mad and tell everybody you know, every Tea Party, every Republican, every American that you know, to go to cosponsor.gov. And you can look up the Trust Act. And if you haven't signed up on it, sign up and say, I want this brought forward. I want to have about 500,000 to 1 million people saying, we want this through. Because if not, my goal is we're going to go to the press and I see some press people are here, and ask leadership, why won't they bring up Yoho's Trust Act? I mean, if you've committed a felony, by God, you need to get out of here. And so let's change the people we send up there.
Representative Yoho, thank you for being a part of our program.
Yes, sir.
And the last two questions were a perfect segue for mine. 4 years ago, speaking for myself and maybe a lot of other people in the room, I was not as intimately familiar with or involved with what you're doing for us, Representative.
I wasn't either.
Okay. One thing I've learned is how incredibly hard your job is, between leadership and constituent expectations and momentum that you've bought into. When your neighbor, colleague, Sutherland was elected, I said to Steve, when you go to Washington, your worst enemy is not going to be the Democrats, it's going to be your party's leadership. And that has borne true. Okay, so that's got to be tough. Them beating up on you, pointing to important committees that you can go home and brag about, the committees that you're on, that you want to be on, they're important for your constituency. So we appreciate your backbone, your perseverance in fighting leadership.
Thank you.
That's an important fight. Not just the Syrias and the Putins and Irans, but our own party's leadership. Okay? Sometimes our worst enemy. The other side of that coin, though, is the constituents. And let me ask you a question about the Farm Bill. You go to Washington and you find a set of expectations on the part of a very important component of your constituency in this district as well as the one to the west of you, agriculture. And there's a decades-old, generations-old tradition of federal interference in
support of the agriculture subsidies, quotas, sugar, favoritism, crop supports, insurance premiums, deductibles, that whole thing, that at the end of the day costs us billions and billions of dollars. I asked Peter Schweitzer the other day, the author of Throw Them All Out, who wrote the book about insider trading, what did he consider to be the most important issue confronting us as a republic and our survivability? And he said federal deficit spending and the resulting national debt is going to destroy us as far as sustainability of that, from an actuarial standpoint, and ultimately the destruction of the purchasing power of our dollar and our savings. So how do you deal with a constituency that is expecting you to continue to spend billions, if not tens of billions of dollars on federal programs?
I've got a good friend of mine here that you guys all know, Tom Hayes Morrison, and Tom says there's about 15% of the people that pay attention, if that. Therein lies a big part of the problem. We have got to educate people, we've got to inform them. This goes back to our education of our children. They don't know the Constitution, and when we learn and when we fail to remember who we are, how we got here, our founding values, our core values, and our principles, and the roadmap, the Constitution, people, they don't care. We have got to get that back in America. The constituents, they don't want us spending that money, and I'm glad you brought that up because this takes us back to Syria. At the end of my tirade in the White House, and I said, I probably won't be invited back after I get done speaking. And I said, I know I don't have to remind you that we're at $17 trillion in debt. Social Security and Medicare are going broke. We need jobs in this country. 6 weeks ago, we were furloughing people because we were out of money and we had sequester. In April, you closed down the White House and couldn't give tours to the children because of sequester, but now we've got $1 billion a month to spend in Syria? I said, I don't think so. The people where I come from are mad. We're giving $55 million to Pakistan so they can send their kids over here. Incidentally, they don't have a tax structure in Pakistan, so they don't usually pay taxes. So we're funding their kids to come to America at $55 million so that we can teach diversity and American way of life so that they can take it back and be our friends. But yet, people in my district, Mrs. Smith calls me up and says, I can't get a loan for my child to go to school. People are upset. We need to take care of America, and it's like Jesus said in the Bible. Don't worry about the splinter in your neighbor's eye when you have a timber in your own. This is the time for America to redirect, change leadership, and say, we're going to worry about our problems first, and if we grow a bigger, better, stronger America, more competitive America, we will be the trading partner everybody wants, and the rest of the world, I feel, will follow that. Am I wrong? And we ran out a platform to be there 8 years, and it's going to be dependent upon you people. You'll send me back if you like what I do. That's my goal for the next 8 years, is to make those things happen, to preserve the opportunity that is the American dream that has made this country what it is, and I will not waver.
Yes, my name is Jared Rogers. I'm from North Lake Tea Party. Two questions on Obamacare.
Yes, sir.
Lake County. When the government passes laws that we're subject to, that same government should be subject to those laws. Congress is exempt, Obama is exempt, IRS is exempt, the IRS union is exempt. The second question is, can we, 10 million man march or whatever, to put the pressure on House to defund Obamacare in the next continuing resolution? Is that possible? What do we need to do?
I think it is. What do you guys, do you think it's possible? Would you be willing to do it? You need to talk to every Tea Party, every person you know, because this is going to affect everybody. Everybody is going to be affected by this bill. Not just the wealthy, not just the middle class, but the people on the bottom. They're going to be affected by this bill, and it's not going to improve health care in this country. The first part of your question was?
The people that pass the law.
Oh, to pass the law. There's a bill by Ron DeSantis that we co-sponsor called the Madison Bill. It says no law shall be passed that applies to the American people that does not apply to Congress. It's already in the Constitution. So we're passing a law to back up the Constitution, and we're saying, no, sir. This law, everybody from the administration, the cabinet, the IRS, every federal employee needs to participate in this. All right? And so, yeah, we can make a difference in this because we're not, and see, this is where politics comes into play. You have the continuing resolution that'll defund Obamacare, and to be honest with you, defunding Obamacare is not going to get rid of it. It's got 80% of it is mandatory spending. That needs to be done away with. Plus the constitutionality, we're going to challenge that. We're hoping to introduce this stuff next week or the week after that. So that's where we stand with that. I'm telling you, this is the worst thing to come in here. We had a medical forum, and I'm just going to run this by you real quick. And we had all the medical people there, and they were telling us how bad this was, which we already knew. And there was somebody that was pro the Affordable Care Act, and she had colon cancer. All right? And she says, this is the best thing, this is something we need to do, because without this, I wouldn't have got treated. I said, well, how'd you get treated? That was 5 years ago, Obamacare wasn't around. She goes, well, my husband had insurance through his business. And I said, so you got treated the traditional way. And she goes, well, my doctor didn't want to treat me because I was only 35, but I wanted to have an exam. And he says, you're too young, you don't need it. She goes, no, it's a family history. So she talked her doctor into the exam, good thing. And the doctor found some malignant polyps, cut them out. 5 years later, found some more, cut them out, and she'd been under screening. She's clear now. With the Affordable Care Act, understand this, because to me, this is probably one of the most important ramifications if we don't get rid of it. There's this board called the IPAP board, the Independent Payment Advisory Board. It's a panel made up of 15 people, only one's required to be a doctor. They have no jurisdiction over them. They are not elected, they are appointed. Had this lady been under that kind of care, I can only imagine what would happen. She goes to her doctor, says, I want this exam. He looks at what the board says, you're 35 years old, you don't need that. That doesn't kick in until you're 45. You understand what would have happened? That lady probably would have died of cancer. If we take health care and turn it over to a government agency and take it away from you and your doctor, to where you can say, no, I want this test done because it's in my family. That to me is the biggest crime with this bill. And again, this bill is going to affect everybody in America. Has anybody ever called the IRS to get a resolution on a tax problem? Can you imagine calling them up and saying, you know what, I can't urinate, and it's starting to hurt real bad. Well, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, where it's holiday weekend too, call me Monday if you're still alive. I don't have confidence in that system. And, you know, I mean, it's just a bad way, it's a wrong way to go, and it kills jobs in America. And so, I think we need a 10 million man march on Washington. I think we need to stand up and say no. You know, look what the Egyptian people did. And I'm not advocating that. But they stood up and they said, we don't like what Morsi is doing in this country. He promised jobs, he was going to do this. He threw away the jobs, and they ran with the Muslim Brotherhood mandate. And the people said, we're not doing that. And so I was proud of the Egyptian people for standing up. I'm not advocating violence or anything. I just think we need to let our voice be heard loud and clear and say, we're not putting up with this, we've had enough of this. And for real leadership, if you've got a bad plan, and it's caused this much dissension and this much distraction in our country, real leadership would, what I would do is say, you know what, I was all hopeful that this would fix our healthcare problem, but I understand the duress that's put this country in, the distraction and the hurt on the economy this has done, and what it's going to do in the future, and I'm going to pull this bill out. There's got to be a better way. That would be leadership. But I don't think we're going to see that. When you have the union standing up and saying, Mr. President, we helped you get this bill, you lied to us, you need to fix it, you need to fix it now, and you've seen the unions. Let me tell you what we did. I had our office yesterday reach out to the unions to see if they want to come on board with us to help us get rid of this. And so we're going to sit down with union leaders. And I'm not a union guy, you know, but yet we've got a common enemy, and it's the health care bill. And they didn't realize it. Delta Airlines says it's going to cost them $100 million to be in compliance. UPS said they're not covering spouses anymore because of this bill. This is wrong for America, and it's got to go.
I have a question for you. Obama's incompetent. Why can't we send a message to the whole world and impeach him?
Amen. Amen.
Well, the whole world doesn't vote on it, it's just us. We can do it. I mean, yeah, we can impeach anybody, but he's going to be gone in 3.5 years. What we have to do is stand strong, change the dynamics like we did with Syria, change leadership in Congress, get different people in charge of leadership, change the Affordable Care Act. If we showed up in force, I'll guarantee you they're going to say, you know what, we need to start listening to the American people. It is. Who? Yeah, that's right. I'm going to drop back, and I know you guys, a lot of you have heard me say this, and this goes back to the Affordable Care Act. If you think how our country started out in part by an objection to the minimal tax placed on all the tea sold in America, and that led to the Boston Tea Party. And that's in a big part of why we're here today, that we've come full circle and created a government that not only says you have to pay the tax, but you also have to buy the tea. Not only are they telling us we have to pay the tax, but you have to buy their product. And that's the Affordable Care Act. That's un-American. I feel it's unconstitutional to be dictated by our government. And again, this, we've got till October 1st to make enough noise around this nation and say, we're not doing this. We've had enough of this.
Yes, sir. Congressman Yoho, thank you for joining us this morning. One of the things, I listened to the entire soliloquy about Syria and overseas, and the reason I voted for you was because of the unemployment numbers. Now, if you read the Gainesville Sun, 3 of every 4 Europe graduates are leaving the state because they can't find employment. What exactly are you doing to alleviate that?
Keystone Pipeline. It'll create immediate jobs. It'll bring down our oil prices. Repealing Obamacare. People said, well, you Republicans, you're repealing Obamacare again. Don't you get it? I said, I do get it, because where I come from, people want it gone. Talk to business people. We do business roundtable meetings, and we had a guy that had 500 employees, somebody else had 125, somebody else had about 125. It came out of that meeting that the estimated cost for the Affordable Care Act to be in compliance with it was $1.74 per employee, per hour per employee. So the guy with 500 employees, we did the math, it was $1.8 million. It's going to cost him to be in compliance with that. $1.8 million, over and above what he's making now. That money comes from, he can raise revenues a little bit by raising his prices, but you can't raise it that much. The rest is going to come out of his profits in his pocket, and the other part's going to come out of this. You know, I like you. You've been a good employee of mine for the last 15 years. I can't afford to pay what I'm paying. And so they're going to make you pay more on that insurance. Your quality of life's going to go down. Getting rid of that bill, I'm telling you, will be the #1 job creating measure in this country. In addition, we promote the fair tax. The fair tax has driven companies out of America. There's a medical device company in Alachua, there's several down there, but one of them makes body part replacements like hips and shoulders. In the Affordable Care Act, there's a 2.9% or 2.3% medical device tax that is on gross revenues. They told me that tax is applied to gross revenues, not on profit. That would cost them an estimated $22 to $30 million a year, extra. So they're going to go overseas if it doesn't get repealed. We've got bills in place to repeal it, and we can repeal it, and now it goes to Harry Reid. We've got to demand these guys pick these things up. We've got to get government out of the way of business to create jobs. I mean,
if that's the case, how many members of Congress have said we're not going to take the subsidy of the Obamacare? How many members of Congress have said we're not going to accept it?
I don't know how many members.
That's my question.
I don't know. I know there are some in there, but we got this bill to say, no, we're in compliance with this, we will pay the subsidy. We're saying that in this bill. All right, so the bill's got to be passed and it's got to go to the Senate. I'm not getting it now. I don't plan to take it. I don't want a subsidy. Why should I have a subsidy over you guys? Something else we did is, we said we won't take a raise for 3 years. I made a personal pledge to somebody and I gave my word. I'm not taking a raise. And we've cut our expenses in our office, and at the end of the year, we're going to have, our goal is to have $100,000 that we can turn back. And I just found out the other day I can't turn it back to the government. It goes to Mr. Boehner. I said, no, it won't go there. And we've got a strategy that we're developing to where we make sure that goes to the debt.
Congressman, welcome back to North Central Florida. We missed you last month. But that's not my question. Well, in following on with the question the gentleman had about the health care, we know that the recession has hit everywhere in the country with the exception of the Capitol Beltway. And
it's booming up there.
We really are disappointed that we're seeing the Congress and staffs being subsidized. That's really an injustice right there. My two real questions are, what's happening with the appointment of special independent counsel with indictment authority to deal with issues like Benghazi, the IRS, Fast and Furious, and the list goes on. And the other question is a little more general. There's a gentleman up your direction by the name of Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah.
He seems to have a lot of the same common sense ideas, thoughts, and concerns that you do. You hearing any Washington buzz about him?
I'm not hearing anything about him, and I was at that day of the National Prayer Breakfast when he spoke. I mean, very straightforward, and he talked about how political correctness is killing this country. It's a form of censorship. If you can't have an open debate without trying to, you're not trying to offend anybody, you just want to get a topic out. If you can't talk about that in the fear of being not politically correct, we've censored ourselves and we've ruined the debate. And I appreciate him for bringing that out in the debate. You're right, the economy up there is booming, and I forgot your other part, Jerry. Oh, the independent counsel. I met with Daryl Lysa the other day, and I said, where are we with this? We've got a lot of people that want to get rid of Mr. Holder. And he says, this is where we're at. He goes, you need to talk to Jason Chaffetz or Trey Gowdy. I talked to Jason. He said, man, we've got a 40-page record. We just finished in judiciary. And he goes, you need to talk to Bob Goodlatte. And he goes, he wants to go with this, and he's looking for somebody to help him. So I had our office contact him on Thursday. So stay tuned. Benghazi's the same way. Benghazi will not go away. There's too many people, and it comes from you guys. Too many people want answers to this. And we need to be accountable to the 4 people that have died and their families. And it will not go away. We've got some bulldogs in there, and we're going to have a special hearing in Foreign Affairs, and we look for some people to be held accountable, and this is going to go up to Miss Clinton, I know for sure. And it's also going to go higher than that, I think. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm from Brevard County, and I'm not in your district, but I would like to know, did you have, during the August recess, did you have a town hall meeting?
Yes, I did.
Wonderful, because in Brevard County, Senator Bill Posey flat out refused to have one in spite of several of us belting his email and his telephone.
I'll pass it on to Mr. Bill. He's a congressman, not a senator. He's a senator.
Yes,
Congressman.
a congressman. Anyway, he's absolutely refused to have one. I'm glad to hear that you did, because
I wish
we had you in Brevard.
But since we've been elected, I think we've done close to 20 live town halls. I can't give the exact number. Over the August recess, I went to Israel for a week. I got beat up about that, and I can justify why I went. And then we worked in the district for a week, and I think we did 2 town halls. And then we tried to go on vacation for a couple of weeks with my family, and I don't feel bad about that. But I had to leave and go up to Washington on Syria, which I was honored to be able to do that. So I think that's important. I think it's important to be out in front of your constituents. And we're doing the town hall Monday in Gainesville at J.J. Finley High School.
Ted. What time is your Finley?
Clay?
5:30, J.J. Finley Elementary School.
5:30? 5:30 J.J. Finley? Come one, come all. It's bound to be fun in Gainesville.
Ted, we have your petitions spread out on the back table, so if people would like to go back and just sign your petition.
I do have petitions. Election season is coming up. We need to have, I forget, that's 4,000, maybe 4,000 to 5,000. If you do me a favor, if you like what I've done, if you want me to go back, we need to have those petitions signed, and you have to be within the 3rd Congressional District. And if you're not sure, ask one of us and we can tell you, and what counties those are.
And if they're spread out, if they want to come back, just sort of work their way back now while you're answering a few more questions,
Sure.
and that would be great. That would work out for you.
And also, they can't sign if you're not there.
Right, I've got to be your representative, the 3rd Congressional District, and there's 13 counties, and we can tell you what county. Yes, ma'am.
We have 16 days left.
We sure do.
I think that Obamacare and immigration is our teetering point. I think we're, as a country, we're on the edge. And I think both of those could teeter us down. And we have 16 days. What would you like for us to do to help you?
Go to co-sponsor.gov, get on every bill that gets rid of the Affordable Care Act. Call your state senators, call your representatives, your state senators on the federal level. You need the people in the federal level to know about this. You tell everybody in your state people too. We need to come out in force and say, no, go back to 5 days before the election when Mr. Obama first got elected. We are 5 days from fundamentally transforming America. I don't know about you, but I can't stand any more fundamental transformation. I personally didn't think America was that bad. I thought Washington needed to be fundamentally transformed. That's why I ran. We need to fundamentally transform the workings of Washington. And I hope I'm part of that for you. I feel like we went up there for that cause. We just need to get more people up there like that. And we need to make sure they'll stand up. And if they don't stand up, and if I don't do what I say, throw me out.
I'm not sure we have enough time to make a difference in
We've got
elections.
16 days, like you said. We have got to make a difference now. Once that goes in place, it's going to cost $2 trillion just to implement it. There is no verification for people signing up that want the subsidies. They can get up to $18,000 a year subsidies on their health care with no verification. This thing is the most ill-conceived plan by man in government. It is legislative malpractice, and it was one of the big things I ran on. And I'm telling you, if we go there, they're saying this is the biggest welfare system devised by man on the planet. It's the redistribution of wealth at its best. And it's not American, and that's not what this country is founded on. We're founded on a work ethic, self-reliance, independence, and this takes all that away from the individual. And it's just anti-American as far as I'm concerned.
Right here.
Hey, Keith.
Hey, how are you doing? I appreciate what you're doing up there in DC. It's a tough job. One of the common popular issues here at this two-day event is Common Core. And I understand there's a congressman in DC that's working on legislation to abolish the Department of Education. Could you share with us the...
I'll be happy to. Who here thinks the Department of Education should stay? All right, that's pretty much unanimous. All right, we ran on getting rid of the Department of Education. This was not fluffing stuff for campaigns. This came from you guys, talking to superintendents, talking to principals, talking to school board members, parents, and teachers. I have found but one person that wants the Department of Education. I've talked to over 35 representatives in Washington, congressional people, and senators. I have not found one person that wants the Department of Education. So I'm thinking, why do we have a Department of Education? We're spending 3 times more per student today than we did before we had a Department of Education, and we're going backwards. I'm not an economist, I'm not an educator, I'm a business guy, and I kind of know some principles. If you're spending money to fix something and you're going backwards, you stop spending the money and redo it. Our goal is to get rid of the Department of Education. We're working with the John Birch Society, we're working with the KEYNOTE Institute, we're working with Heritage, and we're working with a bunch of other different organizations. The goal is not to present a bill to say, when I come back, say, hey, we presented a bill, get rid of the Department of Education, knowing it's not going anywhere. Our goal is to get results. And it'll be, the plan is to phase it out over 3 years and say, you know, Department of Education, you will stop and desist in 3 years from the introduction of this bill. All you people that are working here, all you fine people that are working here, we appreciate your service. You need to find another job and you need to start working on it for 3 years. You got 3 years head notice. And to phase that out, return the money to the states. No, don't take the money from the states, leave it at the states. And that's our plan. As far as Common Core, if you read how that came about from a group of governors that got together that thought they should standardize test results so that they're all kind of going in the same direction. It was a voluntary program. They thought it was a good idea. The White House got a hold of it with Arnie Duncan and the president, and they said, hey, we think this is a great idea. You know what? We can put mandates and say you must follow Common Core if you want the money. I think that's a terrible idea, because the federal government's involved. I don't want them involved in that. I don't want them involved in my health care. I don't want them involved in anything. I want them to be like the motor in my diesel out there. It's in there. I know what it's supposed to do. I don't want to hear from it. I want it to perform its job and leave me alone. And I'll tend to it and I'll change oil. And that's what we do with Congress every time we vote, every 2 years. Vote and fix it. And that's the way I want my government. Am I wrong in that?
No.
And so I don't have an agenda on Common Core. I have an agenda on getting rid of the Department of Education. And that will get rid of the Common Core. Oh man. Y'all hang on now. This young man and his mother and his brother asked me the hardest questions I've ever been asked.
Is it still in debate whether to invade Syria, and if so, how do we stop it?
That's a great question. It's still in debate. How do we stop it is, we've already let the feeling of Congress is no, and I'll tell you what happened, is they were going to have a vote in the Senate, and they were going to have a vote in the House of Representatives. They pulled that off the table because they know we're not going to support it. Everybody in here knows Alan Grayson, right? Yeah. Alan Grayson and I have become friends.
He's on the right side of that issue.
Rand Paul has a Liberty Caucus. A lot of people come to that. Alan was in there last week. And he goes, you know, when I got reelected, I reread the Constitution. Nowhere in there does it says the president has the authority to attack another country and declare war. That's Congress's duty. Is that not amazing? You're seeing people become more libertarian-minded to protect our Constitution, to protect a way of life that's second to none around this world. You know, you look at what our founding fathers have done. The blood, the sacrifice, and the progression of this country. There is American exceptionalism for this reason. The people that formed this country came from a repressed, tyrannical forms of government. They wanted freedom of speech. They wanted freedom of religion. And if you look at classical definitions, classical liberalism was independence, self-reliance, free thinking. Our founding fathers were liberals. In the true sense. But now, the liberals of today have gone 180, and they want to tell you what kind of light bulbs to have, what kind of toilets, how to raise your kids, how to educate your kids. They want to turn over our sovereignty to maybe a world order, you know, the United Nations. I don't want that.
Put on that white cap you got.
And I want the fair tax. And so we've created the greatest government in the greatest country in the world. that has equal opportunity for everybody. Not equal outcome. That's not guaranteed. Did our country do everything right? No. You know, we had a slave trade in this country. Something that came over with King George that had been going on for hundreds of years. Was that right? No, absolutely not. And we moved beyond that. We went through the civil rights struggle. This country became a better country because of the struggles that we went through. Steel becomes hardened and sharpened because of the fires it goes through, and our country is no different than that. But I think and I feel in my heart that we're sliding in the wrong direction, and let's just hope it's a hiccup. There's people out there reading books about the post-America world without the U.S. I don't want to be in that world. I don't want to be in that book. I want to have the story about the rebirth of America, the rebirth of the greatness of America, the return of the shining city on top of the hill that guarantees, regardless of where you come from, whatever your background, it's not your mom's fault or your dad's fault or what this person said to you or didn't say to you. It's nobody's fault. It's an opportunity that's there for anybody if you're willing to put forth the work. And you know you've got a government that'll protect those inalienable rights that come from our Creator, not from government. And when government oversteps its boundaries, because the Constitution is not a function of government. Government is a function of the Constitution, and when they overstep those boundaries, it's not only our duty, but it's our responsibility for now and the generations to come that we stand up and we march on Washington. And we say, heck no, we're not putting up with this. You change us. This is not what America was, and we need to work to build this country stronger and more competitive. And with your help, we can do that. And I thank you for the time to listen to me, and I appreciate it all.
Last question. It's my understanding that there was an executive order that exempts Congress and its staff from Obamacare. Am I correct?
That came through OPM, which is the Office of Personnel Management. Yes, you are correct. And that came out
My
Thursday.
question about that is Congress going to accept that, or are they going to reject it?
We're rejecting it in our office, but this goes back to Ron DeSantis' bill. I think it's called the Madison bill, that says that Congress will be included in everything that gets passed.
But if that doesn't get passed, what's going to happen?
Then it's going to be up to your individual representatives to be in compliance. And we're set up in our office to be in compliant and pay it out of our expenses. I mean, we've got to do that. So we're not going to be exempt from it, to answer your question. And for the people that exempt themselves, and this goes back to leadership. Because Ron DeSantis, I shouldn't use his name, this congressman I know from St. Augustine, went to leadership and says, we can't be exempted from that. And he goes, well, the leadership says, well, you know, there's a lot of people in Congress that are financially not well off, and this would be a burden on them. Is there anybody out here that is not a burden on them? So, if we don't pass that, we have chosen to exclude ourselves. And we're saying we're better than you. I will not do that. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. Please thank the Congressman for his time.
Thank you, guys. God bless you. God bless America.